All right. In this video, I want to talk about propaganda. Now, as a Christian, we need to realize that this is Satan's world and that our fight is not against flesh and blood. It's against spiritual powers. And we're not to be looking at trying to have a peaceful, comfortable life as if that's our number one goal, right? I mean, it's okay to pray for that and to put a bit of effort into that, that we may have a peaceful, comfortable life. But that should not be your number one goal as a Christian. Your number one goal should be a light to the world to draw souls to Jesus. So that you plant seeds and you water and you give light that people may come to the cross, that they may meet God and be saved. That's our goal. Now, on one of my videos on Bitchute here, I believe it was one about feasting on the tree of life, I received a comment from this fella, uh, into the fray in the land of Canaan, giving me a link to this video and saying that he's interested in like a critique, like, hey, check it out. If you think I'm wrong, I'm willing to listen to what you got to say and what have you. So I was like, all right, I mean, I'll check out what you're saying. I mean, what book are you talking about? And I was like, there's a link to a video because I didn't know the video was about the book. Because this video here, as you can see, I'm about an hour into it. It's about 12 hours long. And I don't know if I'm going to go through the whole thing because, yeah, I'll explain. Now, I decided to check this out. Interesting title, Genocide Wars, Know Your Enemy, right? I was like, all right, that's interesting. I was like, wonder what this is about. There's genocide wars, and it starts off about, basically with Cain and Abel, right? Two different bloodlines, mentioning Cain's line surviving through the flood. So it's giving us a picture of two separate bloodlines. One, this Cain, the evil bloodline, has infiltrated into different monarchies and what have you, and they run the world, is basically the gist of what they're getting at. And then while doing this, right off in the beginning, it talks about uh, Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, and Hitler, saying that they had a thing in common where they were just trying to make things better for their people. And it was like, whoa, that's a strange way to start your video, bringing them up and bringing up Hitler and having sympathy for Hitler, right? I understand that you can look at some good things about all three of these people, even Hitler, where he actually helped to get the country going again after Germany was in poverty. But he also had an agenda to kill the Jews, which was supported by the Catholic Church, who wants to wipe out the actual Jews, as they've been doing throughout history, through the Inquisitions and what have you. And I had to ask him, "Are you Catholic?" And he's like, "No, but that shouldn't matter." And he's like, "Well, it does, because you've got to find out your agenda here." Because he was saying that Jesus is blonde and blue-eyed, because somebody wrote some letter saying that's what he was. And he's like, as if that's evidence. But you need two or three witnesses to establish something. So you can't just go on one person's account. And you could start to see the agenda going on, that this is the same thing that was going on in Nazi Germany, where what they were doing was doing two things. First, they were demonizing the Jews, and then they were exalting the white Aryan race. And that's what he's doing here as well, where he was saying that the actual true Druze, the lost tribes, are the European people. And he was using Dan as a main point to this. And anybody who knows the scriptures knows that when you read Revelation, the 12 tribes of Israel that have 12,000 sealed, there's a tribe missing, Dan, right? And there's a reason for that. So it's not a tribe you want to be supporting and thinking you're part of. But at the same time, he might be saying that this tribe is the evil Jews. I'm not sure. But yeah, he seems to be just promoting some Nazi propaganda in a very soft way, a very easily digestible way, where he is giving some truth, such as with the supposed Star of David on the flag of Israel is not the Star of David. There is no Star of David. It's the Star of Rephaim that you can read about in Amos chapter 5. And Stephen actually rebuked the Jews in Acts 7 before he gets stoned about this same Star of Rephaim, which is this six-pointed star, because Rephaim is a depiction of Kronos or Saturn, which is depicted by a six-pointed star. And if you look at the NASA images of Saturn, it has a hexagonal shape at one of its poles. And the hexagon is what's inside of that six-pointed star. So that's why the six-pointed star is used to represent Saturn, or you can say Satan, right? This is true, right? And, bring up some other very good points. But the main gist of what I'm getting from is, hey, we got to fight back before they completely wipe us out, right? And it was like, oh, this is that same propaganda going on. And you're getting us away from the spiritual battle and what we ought to be doing, where we're not here to condemn people and we're not here to build up a life and make this a better world. No, this world is going to be judged and destroyed. We're to pull people out of it. All those who want a chance to get out, come to Jesus. Come to Jesus, lay your life at the cross, call on him to save you so that you can have his life imputed to you, so that when he comes, he'll come get you, save you, and then judge the world. And you don't have to be part of that. But this whole thing about getting caught up in this side or that side, you don't want to be doing that, especially when it comes to this, because Nazi Germany was just a type of what's to come. Because what we see with this huge leftist movement going on right now and how it looks so ridiculously insane, it is to slingshot everybody into the far right fascist state, which is the same thing that happened in Nazi Germany, where they were into this deep left side, where they went into an economic collapse after World War I, and they just fell apart. And they had to use like wheelbarrows of money to buy a loaf of bread. And then Hitler comes in with this far right fascist ideology, and he starts making things better, improving life for everybody. So they end up praising him because he ended up restoring the country to something worthwhile, right? And we see the same things happening in the West again to slingshot us back into the fascist state. The one thing men don't learn from history is that men don't learn from history, right? You just keep repeating it. But this time, it's going to be a lot worse. The whole world is going to go against Israel. And this is partly to open up their eyes and to get them to call on the Lord, to finally accept Jesus and call on him to come save them. And you don't want to be on the wrong side. And this kind of propaganda is exactly what's leading a lot of people into this, where we see the stage already being set for this anti-Semitism, this anti-Jew mindset. And it's just prophecy being fulfilled. So to critique the book, I would say it's propaganda. You're using truth to promote a certain agenda, mixing in obvious lies and some bullshit there, but with some truth to actually get people to eat it, because that's how you get people to eat poison, right? You don't just give them poison, you mix it in with some good food. Like rat poison is 99% good food, 1% poison. And this stuff, there's some interesting facts, some stuff you can learn, but you can't get caught up in it, because that's what it wants you to do, is get sucked up into it and start demonizing the Jew. And then next thing you know, you don't realize you're actually siding with the Nazis. They just slowly indoctrinated you into their side. And on top of that, this guy is going against the King James Bible. He didn't really give anything to justify this, other than there's a Wycliffe Bible. And even though he only really translated the New Testament, he didn't finish the Old Testament. He didn't get much done with the Old Testament. But he was saying you need to use the Wycliffe Bible. And why? That basically the only reason was he brought up one passage where in the King James it talks about Israel, but in the Wycliffe it says the Jews. He's like, the King James removes Jews. And it's just a pretty silly argument, nothing that's has any weight to it, right? But when you look into it, the Wycliffe Bible didn't actually use the Latin Vulgate, which is called the Latin Vulgate because it was the common Latin at the time. It uses a different translation. I believe it was Jerome's translation, where the Catholic Church wanted to make a new Latin Bible for some reason, and they ended up bringing about this new Latin Vulgate, but nobody actually started reading it. But Wycliffe, I believe, used that translation to bring about his translation. He didn't have the original Greek and Hebrew. Well, I know nobody has the original, but he didn't have the Greek or Hebrew to make his translation. He was just using the Latin. So you got to take those kind of things into consideration, where the King James translators, there was multiple translators, and they weren't of the same beliefs. So that actually helps you get to the truth, because it's not going to be biased, right? But not only that, they had the Latin versions, the Greek and the Hebrew, and not only that, but the translations from those into other languages, because there was translations going on at the time into German and other languages. So they were able to see how they understood it into their language to help them bring about the King James. And he talked about the additions of the King James, but a lot of people bring that up to try to discredit the King James Bible. But when you look into the additions, you need to realize that they were using a printing press where you had to put the letters up backwards, so that when it came printing on the page, it would come up forwards like a mirror. So there was a lot of errors in the printing. So they made a lot of copies of the book, and then you realize, oh, you had some of these errors, so you have to make an addition to fix the errors. And then the spelling changes to correct spelling, and grammar, right? Those are the only changes. They didn't make a change to the translation through these editions of the King James. All of the additions are to correct spelling, correct errors, and to fix up, all the mistakes that happen through printing. So, yeah, that's another, sign that's going on. Because that's why I asked if he was Catholic, because the Catholics are against the Jews and they're against the Protestants. So they want to get you away from the King James Bible. And they know that the Protestants, if you're actually reading the Bible, you're not going to be anti-Semitic, or Jesus was a Jew, which is something he tried to get away from. And it's something that happens when I talk to Catholics. There's a lot of Catholics that say, Jesus is not a Jew. He's like, what are you talking about? I'll be like, what is a Jew? That's the first thing I want to get to, is like, what is a Jew? Because I want to know their mindset. And a lot of times with the Catholics, what they mean by a Jew is a Pharisee. But the definition of a Jew has multiple definitions that Jesus fits all of, right? First is people use Jew as a general name for Israel, the Hebrews. Well, that fits Jesus. Another definition is those who practice Judaism, which Jesus practiced Judaism, so that makes him a Jew. Those from the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, will that make you a Jew? Okay, that's again Jesus. That you were of the tribe of Judah. Oh, Jesus was of the tribe of Judah, so that makes him a Jew. And the last definition is you're from Judea, and Jesus was from Judea. So all the definitions of Jew apply to Jesus. He's genetically, religiously, territorially a Jew. So if you're anti-Semitic and you're against the Jews, well, then you're against Jesus, who is the King of the Jews. Yeah, I just wanted to make this video as a warning and to state my 2 cents that I'm not for this kind of thing. Not at all. I see how Trump is getting a lot of Christians to follow him, and Christians need to wake up. They're being led the wrong way because they're not focusing on God. They're not focusing on the scriptures. They're focused in on this world, and they want to have a nice, comfortable life. And that's what they're focused on, is themselves. So you lose sight of what you ought to really be doing. And that is to get to know God and to share with the world. So, with all that being said, thanks for watching.
That fella couldn't join the church. He couldn't join the church. He couldn't get baptized. He couldn't get baptized. He woke up with God. He woke up with the devil. Are you saved? Amen. So that fella didn't take the sacraments. Didn't take the sacraments. Didn't say the rosary. Didn't say the rosary. Didn't tithe. Didn't tithe. He went to heaven. He went to hell. You saved? Didn't keep the law. He didn't keep the law. He broke the commandments. He broke the commandments. He didn't keep the golden rule. He didn't keep the golden rule. He woke up in glory. He woke up in the pit. Are you saved? You're saved. If you're not saved, you're over here or you're over here. You sure ain't in the middle. He said, Lord, remember me, thou comest thy kingdom. And Jesus turned to him and said, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be saved. It's like that. You have been saved? If you ever saved, you were saved like that.